Okay, thank you very much. Being 9:30 a.m, we will declare the meeting open. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Today we have two items. We have the panel members, myself, Ray Heron, as presiding member, Ian Birch to my left as deputy presiding member, and Nima, who is online as the specialist member. For the City of Fremantle item, we also have Councillor Andrew Sullivan and Councillor Ingrid Van Dawson. I do need to note that the meeting will be recorded and live streamed in accordance with Regulation 42A. Apologies are nil, and members on leave of absence is nil. Noting of the minutes of the previous meeting, they're available on the website. So we will move to part B, which is the City of Fremantle. Are there, well, first of all, can I have those members present, please, acknowledge that they've given due consideration to the item before. Thank you. Any disclosures of interest? Councillor, you did indicate that you
Yes, I have a disclosure of interest, an impartiality interest, as this item was considered at a council meeting previously.
Noted.
And I sent mine through.
Noted.
Same reason, obviously.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have the application, which is for lot 32 Keegan Street. Have any application for deputations on this, but I will defer to council staff, who I understand are online, if they would wish to speak to the report which is before us today.
Thank you, presiding member. There's no comment from the city. The RAR is self-explanatory, but happy to answer any questions the panel may have.
Thank you. And to that, are there any questions for council staff?
Yeah. Chair, council staff, in relation to conditions 6, 7 and 8 concerning end of trip facilities, I was just uncertain about the wording. It says that, for example, in 6, it says bicycle racks shall be provided in effect prior to the lodgement of a building permit. I wonder if should that say plans or something? Or
so which condition are you referring to?
Between condition 6, 7 and 8, they all have essentially the same wording and they all deal with end of trip facilities. Chloe, I was wondering if you could just have a look at that and see. It seems to suggest that they've got to provide them before they lodge a building permit, which...
Yeah, through you, presiding member, the wording may be a little bit clunky. I accept member Birch's comment there. Perhaps there should be an addition that talks to them being shown on the plans and then installed. I guess we haven't had issue with that in the past from applicants, but yeah, it's quite obvious on our part that they're shown on the plans and then installed. The second part of the condition talks about private occupation, them being installed. So it's near on impossible for them to be installed on site prior to a building permit. But happy for a minor amendment to the conditions if the panel sees fit.
I do take point, but if it is understood, unless you had a proposed modification in mind.
It might be just a simple matter of after approved on the second line, plans for a minimum of
plans showing.
Yeah,
plans
showing. Yeah.
Okay.
A minimum.
So after the word approved on the second line,
to the satisfaction of the City of Fremantle, that might deal with it.
Did you get that? So that would be applied to both 6 and 7
and 8
and 8. And so, Chloe, you're comfortable with that?
Yes, presiding member. Yeah.
Okay.
Old habits die hard. No?
It's a good point, good point. Are there any other questions? Nima?
Yes, this is to Chloe. Thank you, Chloe. Reading advisory note number 10 about the signage, I can see in the letter that the developer has put in and in the report itself that the applicant will submit a separate application for the signage to the city. Two questions. One, are you happy with the advisory note being sufficient to make sure that occurs?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Second was, do you need a timing on that?
No, effectively, before they install any signage, there should be an application.
Okay.
So there's no limit. I think the plans do show some signage, but I suspect the applicant hasn't locked in every tenant yet. So that's probably why they haven't provided a full comprehensive signage plan. But regardless, they'll need to check our policy to see if they're either exempt or lodge a new application. So we're happy for that to be a separate proposal.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all I had, Presiding Member. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, we will put the item with those modifications because we will deal with those administratively unless anyone wants to deal with them separately. No, so we'll deal with that administratively. And so put the item as is presented in the agenda. For those in favour?
Probably need a mover.
Oh, sorry. It's been a while. Thank you, Councillor.
I'll happily move
Councillor Sullivan, did you wish to speak to the item? Oh, sorry, seconder, I'm assuming is Councillor. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's a very straightforward item. It was a little bit weird when it first came in the sense of a showroom sort of sitting in the back blocks of the industrial area. But when you understand that the previous SAT approval for a piece of land immediately abutting it does front Stock Road and that they are, for all intensive purposes, able to be integrated through the design, then I think it makes a lot of sense. So happy to support this application.
Thank you. Did you have anything to add, Councillor?
No, I agree with Andrew's comments. This one's very straightforward and being a permitted use and looks to be largely or all compliant. Yeah, I'd like to see it developed. Hopefully it progresses and we get a new retrovision and new development in Fremantle.
Okay, so now we can move to the vote. So thank you very much, mover and seconder. So all those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. And who would have thought a Fremantle item would go through so smoothly?
I was going to close by saying I wonder why they came to that. But anyway.
Well, I was thinking the same thing.
But we will, that's for a discussion another day.
That's for their problem.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to the following item, which is the City of Melville. Let me just get to my item here. We do have a deputation on this item. And the presenters are here, I understand. Where did you want them to?
Yes, they can come up to here. We'll just have to make sure the councillors are in.
Okay.
We can do Melville too.
Please feel free.
So we have. Sorry, 1 moment, please.
We're just waiting on councillor.
Okay, so we're just waiting for one of the councillors. So Councillor Matthew Woodall is online, yes?
Hello, yes.
We're just waiting for Councillor Daniel Lim.
Yeah, I've sent him a message. He should hopefully be online shortly.
No worries, we'll give him a couple of moments. And council staff are here. Did you want to come up to the presentation?
Michael is presenting first.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, either or.
proceed. Well, we will proceed, and obviously if Councillor Lim joins us, then obviously he can participate. But I will first of all confirm, so Ray Heron as presiding member, Ian Birch as deputy presiding, and Nima as the specialist member, councillor. So just so you're aware, I'm not quite sure if you got all that before. If I can confirm for all panel members that they have given due consideration to the item before us. Thank you. And we've also got an addendum to the RAR, which was published on the 30th. Are there any members to declare any declaration of interest? No, thank you. Other than the standing declaration, which has been noted. We have the item 3.1. There is a deputation by Michael Clare on behalf of the applicants, which I will refer to now. Now, if I could...
Your time. My name is Michael Clare from Developed Property. I'm joined in person by Cameron from Western Corporate and by a representative from Plan E Landscape Architects, a representative from Transcore Transport Engineers. They're both online. We represent the landowners and proponents of this development. We are pleased to receive the City of Melville's report and recommendation for approval for our development application. The development site is located on Hislop Road in Adelaide, which is an emerging medium-density mixed-use infill area. The site is 905 square metres, is a 905 square metre dual frontage lot adjacent to a local park and a short walk to Canning Highway. Development application seeks approval for a 3-storey development comprising 2 ground floor office tenancies, 5 apartments and 14 car bays. The proposed building height, land use mix and parking provision are all consistent with the planning framework and the intent of the mixed use R50 zoning of the site. The building has been thoughtfully designed with consideration for the site, context, the resident amenity and the neighbouring property's amenity. The design has been supported by a detailed landscape strategy. A sustainability strategy has also been prepared, which includes a 6-star rating design, extensive soft landscaping, solar passive design, solar panels, EV charging and facilitating alternative transport options. The development has been designed to facilitate adequate, safe and convenient parking access. Our transport engineers ensure the development is compliant with the relevant Australian standards in addition to the city's requirements. The proposed 14 car bays ensure compliance with the parking requirements and an additional visitor bay is also proposed in the Hislop Reserve. The expected traffic levels of the development on surrounding road networks is considered appropriate and reasonable. Vehicular access is to be taken from Groves Avenue to the rear of the site, with all parking to be concealed within the basement. This was a key recommendation of the pre-lodgement DRP, being asked to remove the access and at-grade parking from Hislop Road and improve the streetscape presentation. With regard to the planning variations, some very minor setbacks variations have been proposed, as well as an increase in plot ratio. These variations meet relevant objectives and performance standards of the planning framework and do not present negative amenity impacts. It should be noted that these variations are supported by the city's planning team, which is reflected in the RAR. It's further noted that whilst the plot ratio number is increased, the maximum building height, the front and rear setbacks, and the deep soil requirements are all compliant. This clearly indicates that the proposed build form is appropriate in this location. With regard to the consultation and engagement, our team engaged with the city throughout pre- and post-lodgement meetings, which resulted in amendments to the design. The proposal was considered by the city's DRP, pre- and post-DA lodgement. The current design is supported by the DRP, with 9 greens provided. Public consultation was undertaken by the city with a small number of objections received. The concerns of neighbours have been addressed through revised plans and conditions of approval. With regard to these conditions, the recommended conditions are considered appropriate and acceptable. To summarise, this is a quality development proposal supported by the city's planning officers, the DRP and the council. We therefore seek the DAP's approval of the DA today. Our team's here to answer any questions if you have any. Thanks.
Certainly. Are there any questions for the proponent? No, thank you very much.
Great, thanks.
So we'll now get Kate Bainbridge and is it Josh?
Josh Curacciolo, thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. And Councillor Lim is now online. Councillor Lim, I can't see you at this point.
How's it going? Sorry, I was trying to get all my technology together. Thank you.
No, that's fine. I just want to confirm that you've given due consideration to the item before us and whether you have any declarations of interest.
None. Thank you, presiding member.
No worries. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd just like to run through some of the key issues with this one, both from a planning perspective and community concerns raised throughout the DA process. So the first one is, I mean, you got a gist of it from Michael and
Sure, and you can take the report as read.
So I mean, this one did go through a council process, and they've also supported the officer recommendation. We have got amended plans throughout the process from the applicant, and they've worked with the city. So the first concern, or planning concern raised, is the vehicle access into the back of Groves Avenue. So
yes,
it is.
Can I just sort of intervene? Because again, like I think it's probably worthwhile that you explain the difference between the land tenure and the zoning. So that will be a pertinent matter, which took me a while to get my head around.
Yeah. So Groves Avenue there, that is reserved as POS under the city scheme. The land tenure itself is road reserve, and that's what the management order is for. So we had to give due regard to the POS reservation under the scheme. In terms of that back area of Groves Avenue, is it really used as POS? There's existing crossovers through to Groves Avenue through reserved POS, versus the applicant and the landowners kind of a right to have access to that road reserve for vehicle access. So due consideration was given to that access arrangement, which will be explained later on. I'll show you some photos. But another concern was from the community in Groves Ave was the traffic and the parking going through their street. And I mean, it's based on the traffic impact statement, it's 6 and 4 trips during peak periods, so not really a huge number of vehicle movements. So to continue on, that's kind of what some photos into the back there of Groves Avenue. In terms of its use as POS, it's not really.
It's not the best piece of POS.
Yeah, it doesn't have a whole lot of.
It joins up nicely with existing public open space adjacent. It does have some really nice mature trees in there, but there's historical vehicle access that have been through that space, and the management orders are to allow for vehicle access, so the land management order is for vehicle access, and the POS came in through a scheme review to try and increase our POS, and we haven't followed through with the change in the classification of the land management order. So that's something we're looking at as a result of this particular application. So, but yeah, it's a bit of a complex thing. So we ended up getting some legal advice as to the hierarchy as to how we should best address that conflict between the public open space reserve and the land management order. And it was determined that the land management order has higher hierarchy. But yes, as Josh said, we did give due regard to the reservation space, and hence the treatment of that space had to balance the need for access as well as the need to also facilitate public open space principles.
So is it fair to assume that obviously location of the mature trees and that was a consideration to, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so there's been no road, no, thanks Kate, there's been no road closure over that section of Groves Ave that's been reserved as POS under the scheme. And that's been nearly 8 years since it was reserved POS, so I guess that adds a little bit more context in that regard. So some of the DRP concerns initially were the applicant proposed vehicle access both onto Hislop and Groves Avenue with surface parking on Hislop. And the DRP raised that as a concern, and the applicant has sought to meet that and completely remove the parking and the vehicle access from Hislop. So the basement parking is all access through the back into Groves Avenue. The DRP also raised concerns about the deep soil planting, which is now satisfactory. The applicant has met those requirements for deep soil, and also obtained a sustainability report from an ESD professional. And another concern was the amount of high level windows on elevations, and I mean the city considered those concerns in terms of opening up the development, and in the context of what they proposed, we considered the access and light, ventilation and views to be acceptable. Some of the community concerns here were a lack of parking and traffic impacts. So in terms of parking, it meets all the requirements as required under the R codes, and for the office, the 2 office tenancies, they have the required parking bays as well, located on site. The TIS has been supported by the city's road safety department, and they consider the 6 vehicle movements in peak hours to be acceptable. And generally speaking, with the location of Hislop Road and where vehicle access could be, it's safer to be through Groves Avenue. The front on Hislop is kind of on a bend, adjacent to the centre, and so yeah, they considered it safer. Visual privacy was another concern from the community, from the adjacent lots, and we've either conditioned certain elements to be screened, or we consider that some of the cone of vision intrusions to be compliant with the element objectives. And quickly, the community benefits that's been proposed as part of this one. So the public realm improvements to Hislop Road, they propose substantial landscaping in the front setback area and an additional birch tree. And then in the back to Groves Avenue, where they've got the crossover, they've proposed a new park bench, multiple birch trees and landscaping improvements to the area that abuts the actual POS, the McJohn Reserve. And they've also got on Hislop a new on-street parking bay, which the applicant has agreed to provide. In general, the outcomes are considered acceptable, so the height and plot ratio, the variations, seem to fit in with the character and the local context of the area, so the mixed use and adjacent centre areas. And both streetscapes are considered to have a positive impact on the public realm through passive surveillance onto both streets, and open balconies facing both streets. We consider that the vehicle access is resolved as discussed, and any visual privacy impacts have been screened or are acceptable.
Thank you. Panel members, any questions for council officers? Okay, sorry, Councillor Woodall, did you put your hand up? We'll go for, and then Nima, you're next.
Thank
Okay,
you. Just a question in regards to the access to the property. Are officers able to clarify the impact on the POS in terms of, I guess, approximate percentage of the reserve that will be converted effectively to driveway as a result of if the development is approved?
Well, I think that what the officers have indicated is that, so you're talking about the land in terms of the proportion of the reserved land, as opposed to, obviously, because there's no impact on the actual POS, the reserved POS is not impacted, but you're talking about the reserved land, is that right?
I'm talking about the whole lot, because it's even though it may be zoned differently, it's effectively all POS at present.
Do you have any indication in terms of percentage?
Through the chair, unfortunately, haven't done an exact percentage calculation, but do acknowledge that there was previously access provided through this space, and that there's substantial additional planting being provided to compensate for the hard stand. We also note that this space is used as thoroughfare to provide connection to car parking space as well. And also wish to bring to the attention of the panel that we have our Manager of Parks, Jeff Bird, here, also available to answer any questions. So hopefully that. Yeah, so there's not an actual percentage as such, is that you're comfortable with that, Councillor?
Could I ask a follow-up if that's all right?
Certainly.
Thank you. Just in terms of the driveway access, I understand that the property to the, I think it's the south, has an existing driveway, and I understand that this property is going to have a new driveway. Was consideration given to having a shared access way for both those properties? And secondly, in terms of the property to the north, in the event that in future that's developed, would the intention be for that to use the driveway that's proposed as part of this development, or would a third access way be required?
Just to clarify, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, the property to the north doesn't abut the road reserve portion, it's actually onto POS, so they wouldn't have the option of gaining access via this road. As to the one to the south, in terms of the consideration of a shared crossover, was any consideration given to that?
Yeah, so the applicant did propose a shared crossover arrangement initially with the southern property, 11 Hislop, and the city had to receive legal advice on that arrangement and how that would work. Without that, the southern property's okay, basically, or
it had to be by mutual agreement.
Yeah, that fell away. So
ultimately they didn't agree. So therefore so it couldn't be compelled. It's perhaps not. And again, I would suggest if they ever propose redevelopment, it would then be able to be. They would be compelled to perhaps consider that joint arrangement. Would that be a reasonable?
It would be probably up to them what they would want to pursue. But yeah, the shared driveway was originally entertained, but fell away
due to this owner to the south. Yep. Okay. Does that answer your question, Councillor? Sorry.
Chair, there was the suggestion that adjoining owners are going to have to build a new road. Is that access? Is that?
No, that's an existing to the south.
Yeah.
The council was asking about if one to the north, but that won't be possible because it's actually in the open space.
I thought he said that meant that the number at number 11 they would have to build a new one, which wasn't my understanding.
No,
they've got one existing.
No,
yeah.
It's been there for 20 odd years.
So Nima, sorry, you had a question?
Yes, my question is, I don't know if the developer wants to answer this or the city. What is the confidence level of the design that has been presented for this development application to the city?
So with the competence level?
confidence level? Is it 15% or 8? Well, what is the confidence level of the design that has been presented?
I would suggest at DA stage, I don't know whether the proponent can provide.
Was it the question, the confidence level of the
Yes.
design? I don't really understand the question. Is that in terms of will we deliver what we're proposing?
Well,
again,
what
I
I'm
think
talking from an
architecture
engineering point of view, like you've presented plans over here for the crossovers and so forth. Just what is the confidence level? Is it 15%, 75%? Do you see it going forward changing? That's sort of an idea. I'm trying to get that feel for it.
Well, normally at the DA level, they have to have sufficient confidence that it wouldn't have any impact in terms of the design or outward appearance. Anything that would impact upon that would need to be presented as an amended plan and would have to come back to us as a group. But in terms of, as I sort of say, I'm assuming you're confident that the plan as presented would be able to be delivered in its current form.
Yes. Yeah. It has been tested that it would work from an engineering point of view.
So it's being tested and you're confident it will work from an engineering perspective. Does that assist you?
Yep. Okay.
Sorry,
yeah.
frozen.
Yeah. Just froze over there. Sorry. But yes, thank you.
I do. Oh, sorry. Did you have questions?
Just one, and it's probably back at the applicants. The highlight windows, I guess, and you responded to the panel, I guess. Another way of responding would have been to have translucent or obscure glazing below if you wanted to increase the size of the windows. Did that come into your considerations at all?
Not so much, no.
You're comfortable that?
Yeah, like the highlight windows were raised, and then we added those, I guess, those balconies and made sure that every room had direct access to, I guess, ventilation, natural light, and access to, I guess, outdoors as well, or connection to outdoors. So we sort of veered away from that option and sort of focused more on providing better amenity through, I guess, that sort of continuation of outdoor space.
We did look at bowling the building out as well, but then again, that impacted the setbacks and the overlooking and the bulk side of things. So highlight windows from our point of view was our best option.
Okay.
Necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I don't think it is a compliance issue. It's just.
Yeah.
Okay. You're comfortable with that? Okay. I do have a couple of questions for officers. So again, once I got my head around the zoning versus tenure scenario, that was very helpful. Where the crossover is, however, going through that area, it does intersect with a couple of pathways. I couldn't really tell from the plans in terms of how that is going to be dealt with. My biggest concern is that where pedestrians think they have right of way, vehicles think they have right of way, and then that's where you end up with conflict. Can you clarify, or if the landscape architect ought to clarify, what is the treatment where the pathways intersect with the crossover, and is there going to be clear delineation as to who has right of way?
So, I mean, the pathway will take precedence. So there has to be, a different material. The pathway is its own material, and then the crossover is another material. And it works basically like any other crossover in the city, in that the driveways are cut across with the footpath, which kind of shows a delineation. But there's nothing really that
we are, the landscape plans do show a delineation between the two colours being proposed for the driveway. I think even
so the colour of the driveway changes.
Yeah, changes. So and there's also relocation of existing lights through that area to make sure that that's well visible throughout that area too. So
Okay, no, that helps. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear delineation.
Also because of through the chair, also because there's a reservation over the area. There's also the parks team, if there's found to be conflict can put additional signage if required. But it's just nicer to have, try and see how the materiality works to create that delineation first, before you start putting signs everywhere. So
yeah, no, I understand.
That's the, I think, belief that's sort of.
But all I was going like to say, if the pathway is continuous colour, then the materiality it's now explained, and I'm now comfortable with that. The other part was, I suppose, just as a commentary, I think that the resolution in terms of had there been access from both Front Street and rear, it would probably be quite a different consideration. The fact that there's been that amenity improvement to the Hislop frontage, I think, is probably a significant counterbalance for the situation in terms of that rear access. So I do very much sort of see them as being an interplay, if you like. Okay, but with that, I will seek. Sorry, was there any other questions? If not, I will seek a mover and a seconder for the item that sits before us. Is there a mover for the item?
I'm sorry, presiding member. I do have the opposed view.
Certainly. So once we actually have the item on the table, I'll then ask the people to speak to it.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So,
sorry, if I could just add, I think in moving the item, I think there's a numeral 1 left out of condition 7B. Very minor thing, but so we'll just slip that in.
We can deal with it administratively. So that was condition 7B, was it?
Yeah, it says unit, it's missed out the 1.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, I'm with that. I'm moving.
Okay, it is moved, seconded. Nima, thank you. So we have it moved and seconded. Did you wish to speak to the item first, and then I'll call for other speakers on the item?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think this is a very well considered development. It's certainly been through a thorough assessment process. And yes, I guess the access at the rear was unusual. If this was a park, then obviously it wouldn't be considered, but it's not that. There's a road there. And there are benefits, and in fact the DRP picked up on that, and there certainly are benefits to Hislop Street. Otherwise, it pretty much meets all the intent of the both the former and the current codes. And I note that the units are quite generous in size, so they will be very attractive, I'm sure, to people. And and certainly from, as I say, from a planning point of view, I think it satisfies everything that we need to that needs to be assessed, and that's been done thoroughly. So I support it with as it's presented.
Thank you. And Nima, did you have anything to add before we go to Councillor Lim?
Sure. I just wanted to say I agree with the Deputy Presiding Member and support the RA. And I also would like to compliment and say to the developer and the officers to taking on board the design review panel's comments in the first round, and then to make such a significant change to the development in order to meet those requirements. And have in turn, I believe, have proposed a better development to and achieve better outcomes. So thank you, and I support.
Thank you. Councillor Lim.
Thank you, presiding member. So I do agree with the deputy presiding member and Nima as well, that the developer has indeed considered my colleagues at Melville in terms of the design review panel, that all the points that were listed, they did put in the effort to make as much changes to increase the value of the area, like and also introducing a park bench, provision of the 5 new street trees. I'm also considering the holistic side of things. So, looking at the residents, Ms. Robbins, Rogers, Studart, I feel that we have to be respectful of the vehicular entry to be at Hislop instead of Grove. So I think it's important to ensure that we don't mix. I know there is a mixed use of commercial and residence, but we do our best efforts to try to not mix the two. So I believe that there's an opportunity if the design was to go a different way to enter through Hislop instead of Grove. I feel like that would possibly be a better outcome for everyone, and keep all the traffic to one side as opposed to impeding on resident areas. So that's my view. That's why I'm speaking opposed to it. It is a tough decision. I feel that it's a great development and everything was considered, was done properly. But I think holistically, I think there's a bit of an imbalance in my point of view. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers on this item? Certainly, Councillor Woodall.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I'll also speak against this. I found to be a very difficult decision because the development as a whole I'm very comfortable with. I think it's a high quality development. I think the variations are relatively minor, and I think it will improve the streetscape, and it will improve the area as well. So I do support it from that regard. Like Councillor Lim, I guess my concern is around the access and particularly the fact that it will result in some loss of what is currently POS, even though it may not be zoned correctly. And that does have an impact, I think, on the community, and there is limited POS in general. So it's very hard to create new POS. So I guess I would have preferred access from Hislop as well. If there was already, if the rear of the property had been a road since the 1960s and it had always been a road, I probably wouldn't have concerns about it. But just because it's been used as public open space for quite a few decades now, I just have concerns about that and the signal it sends. So for that reason, on balance, I'm going to oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, my position is, I suppose, based on both the evidence that's been presented and the feedback from the Design Review Committee. I think it is notable that, in fact, there was an express desire to remove the Hislop Road connection. So although I take the point of the councillors from an overall longer term and planning perspective, the pedestrian amenity around Hislop Road is to be the primary consideration here, given the future intended function of this particular area. Had the secondary road been a different context, I may have considered it to be different. But the other thing being that there is legal advice which clearly shows where the priority lies there. So, planning in some instances has to be subservient to other items of law. In this instance, however, I think it is entirely consistent with what are the longer term perspectives. I would also say that the form and function is very much aligned with what is entitled and inspired for the area, and therefore it will add to the momentum of the changing urban form which we expect in these sorts of areas. So with that, we have a mover and a seconder. I will ask all those in favour to please indicate.
Close.
Oh, sorry. Yes, of course. By all means.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I did want to say something in closing debate. Firstly, we're a statutory body, and this is a road. It's been used as public open space, but my firm belief is that as making a decision based on the law and the planning framework, there are no grounds for refusing access from the rear of the property. I guess there was always the opportunity for the council to close the road and acquire it for public. I don't know who owns it, but acquire it for public open space. But that wasn't done, so it's remained a road. And if that was done, it would beg the question of the people. What happens to the access to number 11? And I understand they have, some of those residents have complained about this access, which does seem a bit rough, but anyway. So yeah, look, firmly, I feel that in making our decision, there are no grounds to refuse the application on the basis of the access. And I also note that the applicants have put in place a number of measures to reduce as much as possible the impact on the nearby open space. As for pedestrian circulation, I've got a park a couple of houses down from me, and we've got a laneway, and it's used for vehicle access, and it's also used for pedestrians going to the park. And it's a very slow speed environment, probably not the best, but it's fortunately, touch wood, no one has ever been hurt using it. So hopefully people will be diligent. So with that, I will continue to support the motion as I put.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Councillor Lim, Councillor Woodall, thank you. That motion is carried. With that administrative change. Okay, item 4 is Form 2s on which there are nil. Section 31 SAT recommendations or reconsideration, sorry, of which there are nil. Other business. Okay, item 1 is SAT applications and Supreme Court appeals. We just note. I don't know. I have no history on any of them, so I can plead ignorance. And are there any items of general business? If not, I will declare the meeting closed at 7:17 AM. And thank you very much, officers, councillors, and other participants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.